Hey everybody, it's Jody Ewing with the Mary Ellen Thanakin team, and I wanted to ask you a question. During this time when we have all been at home dealing with the pandemic and not traveling as much, not going into work as often, maybe working from home, have you picked up a new hobby or an activity that you've always wanted to try but you've never felt you had the time to invest? One of the things that I am really seeing pick up as we've all been at home more is people that are interested in raising their own chickens. We and our family have raised a couple different flocks of chickens over the years, and it's been a ton of fun. We didn't really approach it correctly. We didn't do a lot of research before we got started, and we really just were learning as we went. Not a method I would recommend. So I've had a lot of experience in all kinds of different situations with different kinds of chickens, and I thought that I would give you my top 8 tips if you're interested in becoming a backyard chicken farmer yourself. So my first tip for you is make sure you know your local zoning laws and ordinances. You'll want to check with the city where you live to see what their specific rules and regulations are in terms of raising livestock. And if you're in an HOA community, I would recommend that you check with your HOA regulations as well. I know that here in the city of Roswell, we are allowed to raise chickens, but we cannot have roosters. And that's a pretty common ordinance for a lot of communities. So just check into your city and your HOA and make sure that you are aware of what the zoning ordinances are. My second tip is to decide how many chickens you're comfortable having in your backyard. Chickens are flock animals, so they can't live a solitary life, so you at least need, in my opinion, a minimum of 3 chickens. The reason I say 3 versus 2 is that chickens do create a pecking order, and there is always one bossy hen in your group, and if she only has one target, it's going to be a pretty rough life for that one chicken. So when you start with 3, you at least give that bossy hen a couple different targets when she's feeling super bossy. We at one point at our house had 17 chickens. They become a little bit like potato chips. That way, you think you're going to start with 3 and then you think 6 sounds better. So just keep in mind the size of your property and the number of chickens you think you're able to handle. My third tip is to start with baby chicks, the little bitty cute cotton balls, or if you would like to start with older chickens that are closer in age to when they will begin laying eggs. There's a couple reasons that you might want to choose baby chicks. In our house, we have children and we wanted our girls to have the opportunity to love on the cute little baby cotton balls, raise them by hand, and watch the process from start to finish. It also gives you an opportunity to really bond with your chickens. It may sound hard to believe, but chickens actually will bond with you, and we had a couple of really awesome chickens that bonded and wanted to be pet and sit in your lap, and it was a lot of fun. When you're raising baby chickens, however, it's a little bit different. They can't start their life outside. They just don't have the ability to keep themselves warm enough, so you will have to prepare to have them inside for a portion of the first 6 to 8 weeks. And it's a bit of a different setup on the inside, and you'll need a brooder for that. So that's one thing to consider. If you start with an older age chicken, one that it's called a pullet, or we would call it a teenage chicken that hasn't started laying yet but is close, they might be able to go outside right when you bring them home, but it might be a little bit of more of a process if you want to bond with those chickens and have them be really comfortable being handled. My hesitation with suggesting that you go ahead and buy laying hens would be that hens only lay for a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, and so if you are unsure of where they're coming from, you could end up getting a chicken that's older than you would prefer to buy, and then you don't get the longevity in terms of egg laying that you might if you start with a younger chicken. So those are a couple things to consider if you're trying to decide between starting with baby chicks, which is more of a labor-intensive time commitment and investment on your part, or jumping right into chickens that are already close to laying or already giving you eggs. if you start with baby chicks, it'll take about 4 to 6 months before they start laying eggs, depending on the breed. So my fourth tip would be to decide if you're going to get your chickens from a local breeder or from a hatchery. Hatcheries will not, they basically work in chicks. Rarely will they mail order anything besides like a new chick. So if you know that you want to start with an older chicken, I would definitely look into a local chicken breeder or groups in your area where people might be trying to decrease the size of their flock and they've got some chickens they need to get rid of. Hatcheries are great as an option because they're pretty darn good at making sure they're sending you female chickens and you don't accidentally get a rooster in there. Most hatcheries will go ahead and vaccinate their chickens against some common illnesses that you may run into, and you can get a pretty big variety of breeds of chickens when you go through hatcheries. You can also start your flock at any time during the year when you're going through a hatchery because they're of course working all year round. Local breeders are a great option as well if you want to go see the chickens, you want to pick them yourself, you want to ask a bunch of questions. Just do your research on your local breeders and make sure that they are reputable and doing things the right way. So my fifth tip for you would be to start researching breeds of chickens. Believe it or not, there's a ton of different breeds of chickens out there, and they all look a little different and they all produce eggs differently in terms of how many they produce and the color they produce. So we chose our chickens based on temperament, so how willing they would be to bond with us, and also egg production. Some of my favorite breeds that you could look into are Barred Rocks. There are several Orpington breeds. Cochins are a great breed to look into, and my other favorite are Australorps. You may also run into a kind of chicken called a bantam, and bantam is just another word for smaller. So keep in mind, they are precious and they're so cute when they're a smaller, kind of like a mini chicken, but their eggs are also smaller, and depending on the temperament of your flock, the smaller the chicken, the easier they are to be picked on. My sixth tip for you would be to make sure that you do have the space that you will need for an appropriate sized coop and then an area for your chickens to roam. Chickens really love to scratch in the dirt and find bugs and eat anything that lives in the dirt, and it makes them a healthier chicken, which gives you a better egg. So you don't need a ton of space, but you do need enough space for them to do what we call free range, where they can get out and scratch and peck and find all the goodies in the ground. You do want that area to be protected, and there are lots of different coop designs and plans and layouts online that you can find so that you get one that best suits your yard and your needs. My seventh tip for you would be, if you are building your coop, to make sure that you've got a coop that is easy to maintain. Your coop will need roosting bars because chickens do quote unquote go home to roost at night. They will put themselves to bed, and they do that by roosting up on a bar. They don't sleep on the ground. So your coop will need some roosting bars as well as some nesting boxes, and nesting boxes are where their eggs are laid. You don't need one per chicken. Out of 17 chickens, we had 4 nesting boxes, and our chickens laid in the same 2 nesting boxes every day. So you don't need a ton of nesting boxes, but 1 or 2 should be good. And then my last tip for you on this video is to join a Facebook group. There's a great one called Atlanta Backyard Chickens. Great local resource where you can throw questions out there. You can find people that are trying to downsize their flock and might be willing to give chickens a new home, or who are hatching baby chicks and looking to sell some baby chicks as well. One website that I really love is thechickenchick.com. She has an answer for every question you can have. So in closing, backyard chickens are a ton of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. If you've never had a fresh egg, they're absolutely amazing, and I could do a whole video on the benefits of fresh eggs over store-bought. So if this has been something that you've been interested in, best of luck, and have a great time with it. It's really a lot of fun. All right, guys, see ya.